For the last decade or so, video games have been shifting away from the toxic loot box system in favor of other monetary gains. For those who aren't familiar with what loot boxes are, they are essentially a way for a player to gain cosmetic or non-cosmetic items from a set loot pool, but the item the player receives is randomized. In other words, it's another form of gambling. Many of the past AAA titles such as Call of Duty, Overwatch, Star Wars Battlefront 2, and FIFA have all had loot box systems implemented into them that allow players to gamble for a chance at a cool item. A large part of the controversy around loot boxes is that for some of these games, the target audience is young teenagers and they can't recognize the hidden nature of this system. Similarly, in games such as FIFA and Star Wars Battlefront 2, there was a push for players to want to spend money on loot boxes as they gave them an advantage in gameplay, and this coined the term pay to win, as players gambled at a chance to win an item that would benefit them in-game. Other games such as Overwatch and CSGO took the other route and had purely cosmetic items in their loot boxes. The gaming industry has tried to move past this model in favor of the freemium or free-to-play model, but the biggest takeaway from the loot box era is that it kept players engaged. Aaron Drummond and James D. Soar make a point of this in their article, "Video game loot boxes are psychological akin to gambling." They say, in the way they encourage and sustain user engagement, loot box systems share important structural and psychological similarities with gambling. Essentially, the loot boxes and their gambling nature is what kept players engaged. The point to consider when looking at modern games is how the system has changed and encouraged and sustained the user's engagement, and seeing how they are doing so now. The downfall of loot boxes allowed for a new monetization model to rise, free-to-play or freemium. This model essentially makes the core gameplay free to the player, and depending on the game can take different routes in how the developers monetize the game. Traditionally, games have had a price tag, and with it, consumers get a complete game, although most recently, that isn't true for all games. Sometimes developers could add additional content to the game through DLC, either through a paywall or for free. The first big game to break out with large success was Fortnite with its Battle Royale mode. The game introduced the idea of a battle pass. For a small fee, players can play to unlock a set of rewards that the player can earn by playing the game and leveling up. The game also features another way of monetization through the item shop where players can purchase cosmetic items. Due to the game being free, players may want to purchase the items from the shop or the battle pass. There is the issue that most of these items being offered are only available for a limited time, so players may often feel FOMO or fear of missing out, and often may make impulsive purchases. And considering the prices of these items, players often spend way more money than they would have had they bought a game that was traditionally priced. These cosmetic items or bundles can cost anywhere from $5 to $100 depending on the game. Take Valorant for an example, as they have bundles that are around $100. So as you can see, these items can be very expensive, and players may choose to buy a large bundle every so often, or maybe some smaller items regularly. There's also the issue of having items only being able to be bought that directly affect the performance in games. An example of this is Star Wars Battlefront 2, but that's another topic. The main issue from this free-to-play model and its microtransactions is that they feed into gaming addiction. The approach of the model is described as predatory according to Flail and al. in their article, Taxonomy of Technology Design Features that Promote Potentially Addictive Online Behaviors. In it, they discuss how the model nudges players to purchase items in certain games. This allows for players to get a sense of instant gratification, whether it be buying an item that they have a liking towards, or in the example of theirs, a bypass of a level. The article goes on to talk about how this feature keeps the player's attention on the game, which then leads to an increase of time played. Due to this, there's a cycle that can be seen of more in-game purchasable items leads to more time played, and that means a higher want or need to purchase these items. This brings me to the topic of the flow through your framework that enables this cycle, and how the game Marvel Snap achieves this and is a great example. Next, I'll be talking about Marvel Snap with an overview of the game. Marble Snap's monetary model is that of a free-to-play game, and because of this, the developers have to make their money through microtransactions. The game has several different currencies such as credits, which are used to upgrade cards, gold, which can be used to either buy bundles, credits, and cosmetic variants of cards, collector tokens, which can unlock pool 5, 4, or ultimate variants of cards, and lastly, boosters, which can only be bought through bundles, earned post-match of games, or through the progression track, and these are used to upgrade cards. These currencies are all intertwined, and in addition to them, there's also the Battle Pass, which can be purchased for about $10, or players can buy the upgraded version for $15 for additional instant gratification. So this then brings us to the progression system that is similar to a traditional Battle Pass. The way you progress through the game can be better explained using this graphic by the constructor of fun. This graphic shows how the progression cycle happens once you're further in the progression track, so that players start off by playing matches with their deck that they've created, and each time they finish a match, a few things happen. This includes earning boosters, progressing or completing missions that reward credits or battle pass XP, or winning cubes to progress through the rank system that rewards items every 10 levels. By earning both credits and boosters, the player is then able to upgrade their cards. This then does two things. One, it visually changes the card, which doesn't affect gameplay, and two, it progresses through the progression track. Additionally, the card upgrades cost more the higher the level it is, but also rewards more progression levels. And when the player ranks up in the progression track, they can unlock an item. This is usually boosters, credits, or in my case, a collector's reserve, which can contain a number of things, but I'll talk about this later on. So those are the basics in how a player progresses through the track. The issue with this system is that the progression system preys on players from the start, and it fits into the flow theory framework. So for those who don't know about flow theory, I'll try to explain it. The idea of flow can be described as essentially when a person's skill and the difficulty of the medium they are consuming reaches equilibrium, and by doing so, the person is able to continuously enjoy the piece of media. This idea is explored in the article Flow and Media Enjoyment by John L. Sherry, in which they go on to break down how flow is found in all forms of media that we consume, such as movies, music, and especially video games. For example, oftentimes when you may be playing video games, take for example Warzone, you keep taking wins and wins, and then all of a sudden you realize it's 2 a.m, which is basically the distortion of temporal experience, or in other words, you lose track of time because you were having fun. What flow essentially is when you're having fun or in the zone, you're continuously playing because you aren't bored and are continuously being challenged at a pace where your skill levels can keep up. So the question is now, how does flow fit into Marble Snap? Well, going back to the progression track, you can see that my level in the progression system is around 4,000, and depending on what level you are determines your rewards. As mentioned before, one of the rewards is a collector's reserve, but that is not the case for players in the beginning of the progression track. For those who are just starting out, each time they reach that reward, they get something depending on which card pool they are in. There are 5 pools, and each contains different cards. Pools 3 through 5 are combined. Essentially, as a player that just reached Pool 3 can still unlock a Pool 4 or 5 card, but Pool 1 and 2 is when flow theory comes into play. In Pool 1, you're guaranteed 1 new card each time you level up 12 times in the progression track or collection level. So what is happening is the game is designed so that new players can ease in their way into the game and enjoy it. They quickly progress through Pool 1, and as players are matched with other players of the same collection level, which often leads to them winning games once they understand the basics of mechanics and dynamics. And the way the game is designed is that this system of unlocking cards goes all the way up to Pool 3, so the player is able to enjoy and learn the game all throughout the first 2 pools, and often achieve flow through consistently earning new cards and figuring out what the deck's best works for them. By the time they reach Pool 3, the player has spent tons of hours playing and learning the game, but at that point, cards become harder to come by as they are not guaranteed at every 12 levels. Instead, depending on what collection level, they will unlock either a collector's cache or a collector's reserve, which has even lower odds of a card. These boxes contain a small chance at a new card, a cosmetic item, or some form of currency. So by this time, the player has been able to reach flow quite often, and the player may have started to grow a bit addicted to the game as the game presents many opportunities of keeping the player engaged with the game. The problem that now occurs is that the rate of player earns a new and exciting cards has slowed down by a lot. As previously mentioned, a player's addiction grows the longer the game can keep the player engaged and the longer time spent playing the game. The game does this by constantly adding a new battle pass every month, a small balance update every week, a large patch every month, a new card every week, new variants every week, and new bundles almost every week. So the player has a consistent stream of new content, and FOMO or fear of missing out increases even more. The player may feel the need to spend $20 on the newest bundle since it has their favorite card, and it won't be available for long. Then the player may also want to spend money to progress further on their collection level, as they may want a chance at getting a new card, which is an example of instant gratification the free-to-play games offer as mentioned before. Due to this, there are guides out there that help players get the most out of the game without spending money at all, such as this one made by Reddit user RobCod22, which shows the steps to maximize the gains from upgrading cards. So the issue is that the game is set up for new players to get easily addicted due to flow theory, in which then increases the want to purchase cosmetic items, and the way the progression system is set up makes it so players may want to spend money in order to progress faster. Additionally, after the newest game data mine, it seems that the developers are pushing the toxic progression system even more with the introduction of newbie day bundles. They are essentially bundles that contain popular Pool 3 cards along with other items for a flat price, such as $29.99 for this example. And because of this, I think free-to-play games prey on players getting addicted to the game in order to get them to spend money.